Coming up on Hoosier Sports Night, men's basketball gears up for the postseason in Chicago.
And water polo battles #1 Stanford at home. This is Hoosier Sports Night.
Hello and welcome to Hoosier Sports Night. I'm Kelsey Dennehy.
And I'm Joe Brennan. Happy to be back in Bloomington after an eventful weekend in Minneapolis.
Yeah, Joe, how was your trip up north?
It was fun for about a game and a half.
Well, speaking of Minneapolis, an outcome that no one saw coming. Indiana women's basketball fell against 4-seed Ohio State in the semifinals of the Big Ten tournament this past weekend. The Hoosiers had an uncharacteristic showing overall in Minneapolis, and our Audrey Hasberger has more on the takeaways from the tourney.
It was a regular season unlike any other in the history of IU women's basketball.
Make no mistake, this team that is wearing the Hoosiers across their chest, they had some moxie about them.
The Hoosiers made history over 10 times this season, and in several ways. Terry Morin winning as head coach, sold out games, and the first Big Ten regular season title in 40 years. Just to name a few.
They built it from the bottom. We're a program that wasn't much at the start, and the staff and Grace and Mackenzie and the Tyra Busses and the Brennan Wises and the Allie Patbergs, they're the ones that did it. We just kept chugging away at the end.
Such a strong regular season, defeating ranked teams 9 times and only allowing 2 opponents to get the best of them before March put a target on Indiana's back. Going into the tournament, the Hoosiers mentally prepared themselves to meet the best from their opponents, but when the time came to play, that mentality was tested.
They've always sort of embraced who they are and the pressure that comes with being the hunted. We've stepped up to that challenge more so than we haven't.
The Hoosiers trailed for much of their game against Michigan State, and in the semifinals against Ohio State, the Hoosiers let the Bucks' unbreakable full-court press get the best of them.
I think it's gonna sting for a couple of days, but once we get practicing back this week, I think we'll use it as motivation for sure, figure out how to get better from it.
While the start of the postseason was not what Indiana had hoped for or predicted, the Hoosiers don't want their showing in the Big Ten tournament to erase all the good they did in the regular season.
This is a team that's won 27 games. We have 3 hiccups. They've had a great year. Maybe the Michigan State, the Iowa, that was a tough one. This is certainly a tough one, but what they've been able to accomplish is in this league has been incredible, and I don't want us to forget about that.
From the Target Center, Audrey Hasberger, IOSTV Sports.
The Hoosiers will look to redeem themselves in the NCAA tournament starting next weekend.
The men's basketball team finished off the regular season with a win in overtime on Senior Day in Bloomington. Hank Joseph has more from Sunday's game.
The Indiana Hoosiers battled back to defeat Michigan 75-73 in an overtime thriller on senior night here in Bloomington.
But I thought everybody that played, just kept making plays, and I thought the 2 plays that raced me down the stretch from a defensive standpoint, the 2 steals were probably the biggest 2 plays of the game.
It was fitting for Race Thompson, the 5th-year senior who has battled injuries all year. His double-double performance with 4 steals was a key factor in the victory.
Playing the game, I play against Trace all the time in practice, so you get to practice going against good post players like that, and when he put the ball on, I just kind of ran in there and not got lucky, but I reached my hand in there and got a steal, so that was good.
He says he's good and all this stuff, but he's been really battling. He's been in with Timmy G doing stuff of that nature just to get his body right to be out here, and he's giving it his all every time he's out here.
Well, tonight felt like a culmination of 4 seasons between seniors Trace Jackson Davis and Race Thompson, who each made huge plays down the stretch to lead the Hoosiers one final time in Assembly Hall. Of course, it was Trace Jackson Davis's last game at Assembly Hall, too. Arguably Indiana's best player each of the past 4 seasons he's worn the cream and crimson.
Just knowing that it's my last time in this building, playing in front of these fans in Assembly Hall, is bittersweet. You wish you could play here forever.
I can't say enough about Trace Jackson Davis. He's had a stellar career here at Indiana, but he's still got a lot of basketball left.
As senior night came to a close, Jackson Davis made sure to note the 2 banners he would like to hang before his journey with IU comes to an end, one on each side of the building. Hank Joseph, IUS TV Sports.
Now the attention turns to the Big Ten tournament in Chicago. After a turbulent season, Indiana earned the 3 seed thanks to a big upset win by Penn State at the buzzer. In the Big Ten tournament, Purdue is the number 1 seed, followed by Northwestern, IU, and Michigan State to round out the double byes. The Hoosiers will wait till late Thursday night to find out who they'll face. It will either be Maryland, Minnesota, or Nebraska. On the other side of the bracket, upset teams to watch out for are Iowa at the 5 seed and Michigan at the 8 seed. Follow along with Evan Kamiko and Hank Joseph live all weekend from Chicago.
Indiana wrestling traveled to Ann Arbor, Michigan to compete in the Big Ten championships. The team ended up in 12th place both days, but some Hoosiers were able to punch their ticket to the NCAA finals. At 157 pounds, junior Derek Gilcher got a fall in the 3rd period to clinch a spot in nationals. Redshirt senior Graham Rooks made his first career Big Ten semifinal appearance and was the first Big Ten semifinalist under head coach Angel Escobedo. On Sunday, senior heavyweight Jacob Bullock battled back in the consolation bracket to secure his first berth to the NCAAs. The at-large bids will be announced Wednesday, but Indiana has at least 3 wrestlers who will be traveling to Tulsa, Oklahoma next week. Make sure to follow Adam Oppenheim and Griffin Healy for all things IU wrestling.
Indiana baseball looked to even its record to 500 last night against Purdue Fort Wayne. Our Andy Manzer has more on the Hoosiers home game.
The Indiana Hoosiers came to play today at Bart Kaufman Field, and while it was a cold day to play baseball, their offense was on fire as they scored 15 runs in a dominant victory against the Purdue Fort Wayne Mastodons. The Hoosiers were led by pitcher Ty Bothwell, who recorded 6 strikeouts in 4 innings pitched. Offensively, Brock Tibbetts and Hunter Jesse both homered as the Hoosiers made hard contact all day long.
We did a good job of narrowing down and forcing those guys to be 1 or 2 pitch guys. And when you're like that, you're able to really narrow your contact zone. How many we cover zones, so how many balls wide do we cover in that count? And when you can selectively have an at bat in those situations, hard contact then follows. If I'm covering 7 balls wide and I'm on 4 pitches, it's just really difficult to consistently hit the ball hard. So they did a good job. They ran some quality arms out of the pen. There was 4 or 5 guys that were 88 to 90 with an off-speed pitch. So did a good job of forcing them into the strike zone. And when they got in the zone, we hit the ball hard.
The Hoosiers will continue their homestand Thursday night as they start a 4-game series against the Bellarmine Knights. For IUS TV Sports, this is Andy Manzer.
Coming up after the break, we crown our Hoosier Highlight Athlete of the Week.
And we recap water polo's match against the top team in the country. This is Hoosier Sports Night. And welcome back to Hoosier Sports Night.
Now joining us in studio for this week's Hoosier Highlight is our very own Spencer Hoffman. Spencer?
Thanks, Kelsey. For the final time, a 6'9" senior from Greenwood, Indiana, number 23, Trace Jackson Davis, took the floor at Assembly Hall for the Hoosiers. And for the last time, he's this week's Hoosier Highlight. Trace has had one of the greatest careers of any player to don the cream and crimson, as he is top 5 in all-time scoring, as well as holding the all-time blocks and rebounds record for the Hoosiers. He walked onto campus in the fall of 2019 and has taken over Bloomington with his dominance on the basketball court. Donning number 4 his freshman year, where he was the Hoosiers' leading scorer, Trace changed his number to his now infamous number 23 that has shaped his image at IU. Trace has had a stellar senior season, being in the conversation for not only Big Ten Player of the Year, but the Wooden Award as well. He's done this by averaging a double-double and leading the Hoosiers to beat in-state rival Purdue twice in the same season. Don't worry, Hoosier fans, because the Jackson family has not quite left Bloomington, as Trace's younger brother, Taven Jackson, will be leading the Hoosiers onto the gridiron next season. That's all for this week's Hoosier Highlight. Joe, back to you.
Thanks, Spencer. The Indiana women's water polo team took on #1 ranked Stanford this past Saturday. Jet Garrett has more.
The Indiana Hoosiers put up a tough battle in their 16-7 loss to Stanford.
Yeah, anytime you play, a reigning national champion, #1 team in the country, on paper we've already lost. So we talked about that all week, about coming out with our hair on fire and trying to make them not enjoy playing here.
We were so excited to play #1 in the country, but I think we did so good. We were all so excited because we had nothing to lose, and it was fun for us. We had motivation, and I feel like we came off strong.
The Hoosiers had a tough battle this past weekend against the Stanford Cardinal. Despite the loss, they showcased their depth top to bottom, with freshmen accounting for 5 of the 7 goals scored.
Freshmen Nicole Tyner and Louisa Downs were great. They're not afraid of a big moment, and I think that's huge to see from freshmen, and seeing how bright the future is really promising.
The freshmen showcased this promising future, not only on the offensive side, but in their efforts against Stanford's tough defense.
Their defense is super strong, and they push super hard on us, and they're pressing the whole time. We're kind of used to a drop. I feel like our last home tournament they dropped on us, and this time they had a really high press. So it was hard to pass the ball, but once you got a good pass off, it gave me motivation to keep going.
We pride ourselves on being able to play really solid one-on-one defense to handle things individually, but also having team tactics that allow us to show the unity of the way we play. And today, once we got things sorted out with our one-on-one defense, we were much more successful.
The Hoosiers have an opportunity to bounce back over spring break against UC Davis and Cal Berkeley. From Bloomington, Jet Garrett, IUS TV Sports.
The Hoosiers will play 4 games on the road before being back in Councilman Billingsley Aquatic Center on April 1st against Arizona State.
Indiana softball hosted the Hoosier Classic this weekend at Andy Moore Field. Our Emma Watson has the recap of their last game of the homestand.
With one swing, it was over. Indiana softball stormed back from an early deficit to win 10-2 over IUPUI in 6 innings, courtesy of a 2-run home run by freshman Taryn Crone.
It felt awesome. Just being able to connect with that ball. I had 2 strikes, and just being able to do that for my team and help us break it open and get that win.
I told them I don't care how many they score, we need to score double, triple that. And there's no reason we can't do that. That was the message. So I think when we go into any game, we got to make sure we're doing the things that change the game. Sudden change. If something doesn't happen well in the circle, somebody picks her up. Offensively, you got to pass the bat. We're an untimed sport. We still have momentum swings. And I think our team's starting to see that.
Along with Kern, Cora Bassett, Sarah Stone, and Kinsey Mitchell racked up RBIs at the plate, and Stone went 3 for 3 on the day. Macy Montgomery started the afternoon, but Bree Copeland finished with 2 strikeouts and 4 innings pitched. Indiana went 3-1 on the weekend, and they improved to 8-9 overall.
This game also served as a reunion for head coach Shonda Stanton. Before coming to Indiana, Stanton spent her first few years of coaching at IUPUI in Indianapolis. For Stanton, softball in Indiana is special.
I tell you, it was a great experience. We inherited a program that was 8-20 at the Division II level. That first year we won 27 ball games. We knocked off Notre Dame, got to the semifinal of our conference tournament, and I was like, man, we had 9 freshmen. It was really a situation that I thought I was going to stay. I had gotten another job opportunity, and I had turned it down, and I thought we're going to stay here and build something special. It's one of those situations in life that you bloom where you're planted. And as opportunities arose, even when I was at Marshall, it wasn't until Indiana called that, my values aligned, and I thought this was the place I wanted to be, and this is a place that I want to continue to lift up and get us to the next level. There's just so much greatness here at Indiana, and I really believe we can do that here with the softball program.
Indiana softball will be back in action this weekend in the Lipscomb tournament. For IUS TV Sports, I'm Emma Watson.
Indiana also tallied wins against Purdue Fort Wayne and Wisconsin Green Bay. They'll look to continue their momentum as they travel to Tennessee this weekend for the Lipscomb tournament.
The Indiana men's golf team traveled to Bluffton, South Carolina for the Colleton River Collegiate hosted by Michigan State. The Hoosiers finished the tournament tied for 8th at 20 under par as Georgia Southern took home the team title at 34 under par. Senior Mitch Davis had the best showing for the Hoosiers, shooting 8 under par for the tournament to finish tied for 8th. Drew Sallers shot 7 under par to finish tied for 14th. Sallers was recently named top 25 in the Arnold Palmer Cup rankings for the best American collegiate golfers. IU travels to Tallahassee next week to compete in the Florida State Invitational at Seminole Legacy Golf Course.
Indiana men's tennis continued their road trip this past weekend along the East Coast. The Hoosiers' road troubles resumed as they fell to Princeton and Yale, extending their losing streak to 3 matches. Indiana stayed close to Princeton for the majority of the match, but ultimately couldn't overcome the doubles loss as the Tigers took the 4-2 victory. The Hoosiers were swept 4-0 in Connecticut, despite a valiant effort by Sam Lando and Pat Fletchell down the wire. The Hoosiers will return to the Indiana University Tennis Center tomorrow against Illinois State.
On Sunday, the Indiana women's tennis team began Big Ten play, hosting Northwestern and seeking to extend their 3-game win streak. Our Sam Brunsman has more on the matchup.
The Indiana women's tennis team opened up Big Ten play this past weekend as they took on the Northwestern Wildcats. The Hoosiers struggled in the doubles as Northwestern took that point, but they turned it around in the singles as Laura Schneider and Sabi Nihalani ended up winning both of their singles matches.
They played really well today. To be able to win a 1 and 2 in the Big Ten against a very good Northwestern team, that's very tough. And so for them to be able to do that, it adds a lot to the team, no doubt about it. So, obviously, I'm sure they're not happy the way they play doubles, but I think, overall in the singles, to be able to win 1 and 2 just like that, it was definitely a good start for us.
Mila Majic went 3 sets, but dropped the match in the fourth court, 7-5, 2-6, and 1-6. Which gave the Wildcats their 4th point of the match.
Overall, we played well. I was very pleased with how well we played. It was good about my incoming freshman, first match of first conference to come down to her like that and be able to. So pleased with a lot of things, but obviously we need to keep working on it.
The Hoosiers will take on Rutgers Friday, March 11th at the IU Tennis Center. For IUS TV, I'm Sam Brunsman.
Now joining us with this week's Candy Stripe Calendar report is IUS TV sports reporter Elias Khoury. Elias?
Thanks, Kelsey. Let's take a look at where your Hoosier athletes will be competing as we head into spring break. On Friday, the swim teams are in Bloomington for the NCAA Zone C Diving Championships. The track and field team will compete in Albuquerque, New Mexico for the NCAA Indoor Championships. The women's golf team will tackle the Clover Cup all weekend at the Longbow Golf Club in Mesa, Arizona. Women's tennis will face off against Rutgers in Bloomington, while the men's team will take on the visiting Redbirds of Illinois State. Softball will play a doubleheader in the Lipscomb tournament in Nashville, and baseball will play Bellarmine at home. To end a packed Friday, the men's basketball team will play in the Big Ten tournament quarterfinals. On Saturday, softball will have another doubleheader against Evansville and Lipscomb. Women's tennis will face Maryland in a Big Ten matchup, and baseball will take on Bellarmine again. On Sunday, baseball will finish its 3-game series against Bellarmine, and softball will conclude the Lipscomb tournament against Akron. That's all for your Candy Stripe calendar. Back to you at the desk.
Thanks, Elias. And that's our show for the week. Thank you so much for tuning in.
Be sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at IUS TV Sports to keep up with all the latest in IU athletics. For our production crew behind us, I'm Joe Brennan.
And I'm Kelsey Dennehy. We'll see you next week.